Brian Gutekunst said it without saying it. The end of David Bakhtiari's career in Green Bay is coming soon.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts. You will find Locked On Packers, the number one Packers podcast on the internet. And the show for fans who know what happened, they want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. We knew the Packers had a decision to make. It was a question of really what that decision was. It wasn't, is David Bakhtiari going to be back or not? Because that's too broad a question. And it wasn't, should they trade him or not? Because that's actually also too broad a question. When Brian Gutekunst was asked about the future of David Bakhtiari, he said, a decision has not been made, but they would like to make one before the new league year starts in mid-March. Here's what that tells us. They are, in all likelihood, not going to, at the very least, try and extract every last ounce of value in a trade for David Bakhtiari. Because if you're going to do that, you have to act like you are willing to keep him. You're willing to negotiate an extension so that you can do that right up until the draft. And you can force the hand of a team like the New York Jets. They strike out in free agency. They don't get the guys that they're looking for. And so you can then hold their feet to the proverbial fire. What the Packers are deciding instead is that the money that they will save from making a decision, whatever that decision is, and at this point, it looks more and more like trade or release, not stay and extend or some other option of his exit. And I said, earlier this offseason, I didn't think it was a done deal that David Bakhtiari was going to be gone. That's basically the way Brian Gutekunst made it seem, at least to me, the way that I viewed it from the outside. And what the Packers seem to have decided is that whatever value is lost in acting now, whatever value is lost in saying, I'm going to make this decision before the new league year, is worth getting the $20 million now. That is what Brian Gutekunst is saying. The $20 million that is going to cost on the cap, that's happening no matter what. And the $20 million in savings, that's going to come no matter what in terms of a trade or a release. And remember, the timing doesn't matter. So the question is of timing. If you wanted to get every last bit of value, you'd wait and wait and wait and wait until you got the best offer you thought you were going to get. If instead what you thought was, well, if what we're really doing is moving on from David Bakhtiari to save $20 million, because you've already decided he's not going to be on the team at the $40 million number. What number is acceptable to you? A number probably that's much lower than 40, right? And at that point, it just probably makes more sense rather than renegotiate a long-term deal or even a 2 or 3 year extension for a guy that you don't know if is going to be healthy until camp, maybe. You just want the money now. And that makes sense because then you allow yourself to be a player in first wave free agency. You allow yourself to be in the market for trade partners. I did not expect our T. Higgins conversation to go the way that it did yesterday, to blow up the way that it did, for people to get as viscerally engaged the way that they did. Bengals fans as well. They were like, no way would I ever do that deal. It's not enough. And then Packers fans were like, no way would I do that deal. The receiver room is fine. And I think we've reached the time of year now where every year, every fan base, this is not unique to the Packers, they overvalue their own roster. They decide, nope, everything's all good, all set. Maybe one or two guys, and that's it. It's probably just like not generally true. But for Green Bay, getting the money now means you don't only have to allocate it for like Jordan Love, which is what you might otherwise do if you have to wait. Because you have to wait until free agency over. Like you don't get to benefit really from that money. And now that the cap has gone up, I think the Packers look at this free agency market and they go, well, we could actually really be players here if we just ditch David Bakhtiari's contract, save the $20 million, and now they can be real movers and shakers. And then you can always post June 1, Devondre Campbell. You can use that to help with your Jordan Love stuff. They've moved the money with Rashawn Gary. That frees up some space. And now they're going to have their real opportunities here to make runs at potential free agents. Even if it means, free agency often means overpaying, even if it means overpaying a little. And that means the trade capital piece is less important. And I think the reality of that is they know what the market is. You know, Brian Gutekunst called Joe Douglas and said, what can we do here? And my guess would be Joe Douglas told him to kick rocks. We know you've got to cut him. And we know you want that money now. Everyone would want that money now. The value for a guy, even at $20 million, he's worth $20 million to the Packers. He's in a vacuum, he's worth $20 million if he's healthy. But that, if he's healthy, is a pretty big if right now. And that's a problem for the Packers. That's a problem from a, I am hesitant to even use this word. That is a problem from a leverage standpoint. That the Packers are looking at this going, we know we got to cut this guy, so maybe the thing is we just got to cut him. And I think that's where they are. That this is going to be a release, a flat out release. Maybe it is a late round pick, but doing this ahead of the new league year is really a signal. They're not worried about whatever comes back. They're worried about the money. And then that makes you do the Brian Windhorst. Now, why would they do that? Why would they do that? And the answer is because they want to use the money. They want to use the money. And so, a fourth round pick, even potentially a third round pick, if the player you're getting is someone who is better than a guy you would trade a third round pick for, then that's essentially what you're doing. Like if you're paying for Xavier McKinney or Jordan Fuller or Geno Stone or even someone like Malik Harrison, the linebacker, and that's money that you were able to get, that's worth a draft pick to get a player like that with money that you might not have otherwise been able to move around, or at least you would have had to work hard. You can always find the money, right? You can always structure the contract in a way where you can make the money work. Short of crazy circumstances, short of COVID and those kinds of things, right? Short of being the Saints. And even they somehow seem to find a way to do it every year. So the money is more important than the draft capital. And that has accelerated the timeline here. And that means one of the best offensive linemen to ever play in Green Bay is done. He will not play another snap in Green Bay. And he was someone who was an iconic member of the Aaron Rodgers Packers a close friend and ally of Aaron Rodgers. And I think he's going to be remembered as a beloved player. I don't want to act like he's dead. He's probably just going to another team. And you hope, I think fans are going to cheer for him. I think they're going to root for him wherever else he goes. And I've already seen a lot of people go, I hope he goes to New York and I hope they do well. Because the Jets, their performance is no longer tied to Packers draft compensation. So who cares? Play in the Super Bowl and have the Packers beat them. Like that would be honestly, is there a better scenario than like beating New York in the Super Bowl this year and then going and beating Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl next year? Like that's the script. That's the movie script. Oh, I cracked it. Speaking of quarterbacks, Brian Gutekunst wants to keep doing that. What do I mean? We'll talk about it in a second here on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Bet a Giannis points over one time, and you're probably in pretty good shape because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. You just get it. You just get the money. That's not usually how sportsbooks work. They're not usually in the business, literally, of giving you money for nothing. You got to win your bets. Well, in this case, you win your bet and you get way more money. We love that. Also, quick bets, same game parlays, exclusive props, and more live same game parlays. A really, really fun way to watch a game like, I don't know, Bucks, Hornets. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. You can have some fun. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. And thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at BetterHelp. A lot of us spend our lives wishing we had more time. The question is, time for what? If time was unlimited, how would you use it? The best way to squeeze that special thing into your schedule is to know what's important to you and make it a priority. Therapy can help you find what matters to you so you can do more of it. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. And thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Brian Gutekunst said he wanted to get back to taking quarterbacks basically every year. This was a Ron Wolf thing to do. And just to refresh your memory, our pal Wendell Ferreira tweeted this list out. Ron Wolf, he trades in 1992. He goes and gets Brett Favre, drafts Ty Detmer in the 9th round, Mark Brunell, Jay Barker, Kyle Wachholtz, Ron Makeda, who was the last time the Packers had a Mr. Irrelevant, Ron Makeda, Matt Hasselbeck, and Aaron Brooks. So you've got 2 Pro Bowl level quarterbacks that he drafts in the 5th round or later. Mark Brunell's a 5th rounder, Matt Hasselbeck is a 6th rounder, and Aaron Brooks. And oh yeah, Kurt Warner was in camp for a cup of coffee as well. They were able to trade half of that group for actual draft picks. In fact, they traded Matt Hasselbeck in a 1st round pick exchange. That's the value of the quarterback position. And even Ted Thompson, to a lesser degree, did this. From 2005 to 2008, now this is late stage Aaron Rodgers, he took someone every year. Aaron Rodgers, Ingle Martin, Matt Flynn, Brian Braum. And there was some speculation Brian Braum was going to, the old clip of an ESPN analyst saying, oh, well, he's going to be better than Aaron Rodgers. Turns out not. But Matt Flynn goes on and he gets starting caliber money in Seattle, gets beat up by Russell Wilson. But that worked out. They were able to trade in 2015. They draft Brett Hundley. They were able to turn Brett Hundley into a draft pick. Not a all-world draft pick, but a draft pick. Part of that was they brought in DeShone Kizer and that whole thing. But Brian Gutekunst takes Jordan Love, 2020. Doesn't take anyone until 2023, Sean Clifford. And now we'll see. But there is a lot of value in this. If you look at the quarterbacks last year in the NFL, fewer than half the teams, and this is true basically every year between about 10 and 14, it's almost never 16 or more. Starting quarterbacks play every game. Start every game. Now, part of that is there's 6, maybe 8 teams every year that just don't have a settled situation at quarterback. So you're the Falcons and you've got Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder. Or you're a team that drafts a rookie and you go, well, we don't want to start that guy right away, but we've got this crappy quarterback that we're going to play instead. And so by week 6, you've got a new quarterback. And so they skew the numbers a little bit. But just think about this year. You had major injuries. Joe Burrow. You had Josh Allen played hurt. You had Aaron Rodgers, of course. These are superstar quarterbacks going down. Kirk Cousins tears his Achilles. These are season-altering injuries. Now, if you have, a Joe Burrow injury and you're the Bengals, like you're no longer competitive. But look at what the Vikings were able to do with Josh Dobbs. Look at what the Bengals were able to do because they had a quality backup quarterback. They were able to win some games. Now, Bengals fans were going, can you lose some of these games? We'd really like to have a much better draft pick. But it was cool to see. And what that does is it allows you to say, okay, if there is an issue with Joe Burrow, and maybe next time, Joe Burrow played the start of the season hurt. Well, maybe next year, if he has an injury like that, they can go, well, Jake Browning, we know Jake Browning can play. You have an opportunity there. Having a guy like that is valuable to your team. Now, do I advocate you go out and use a 2nd or a 3rd round pick on those guys? No, remember the names of the guys that I was saying. Mark Brunell, Matt Hasselbeck, those are 5th and 6th round picks. Aaron Brooks was a 4th round pick. So we're talking about day 3 picks. But they're developmental players. They're guys that you can, and it's not like any of the guys I named, Aaron Brooks to a degree, but Matt Hasselbeck, that's not the toolsiest player in the world. Mark Brunell was a dual threat kind of quarterback. He could move and run and do some things outside of the pocket. But it wasn't like they took, a Logan Thomas who eventually had to be converted to tight end because he couldn't play quarterback, where you just want to go all tools. I don't think that is necessarily the kind of quarterbacks that we're talking about here. But just taking some shots, like look at Aiden O'Connell. Someone like that, all of a sudden, if the Packers had made a move like that, what could that do for them down the road? If that guy can start for you in a pinch, that's pretty useful, right? Now, as you look at this group, Joe Milton, who's at the Senior Bowl, monster arm, can really move, but the accuracy is kind of a disaster. This is not a great class to just say, hey, we're going to start taking guys. Michael Pratt is someone who I think is going to get pushed up boards, quarterback from Tulane, just because after this top group, you've got the big guys, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, JJ McCarthy, Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr. I think Spencer Rattler is trying to push into that group. But all of those guys are probably going to go in the top 60. Maybe Spencer Rattler won't. But again, I think quarterbacks get pushed up. After that, it gets dicey in a hurry. Like you get way down to 7th round kind of players. That's not to say there's no one to talk about. But this is maybe not the draft I would have thought. But here's the other side of that. Is if you know Jordan Love is your future, and they do, and he's going to get an extension and all those things. If you know he's going to be your quarterback for the next 10 years, then just take a shot. Do another Sean Clifford, 5th round pick. Now you've got 3 QBs. 6th round pick. In a year or two, do it again. In a year or two, do it again. Do it again, do it again, do it again. Because worst case scenario, you've got a quality backup. And just look around the league. The 49ers went to the NFC Championship game with a 3rd round rookie. Or excuse me, a 3rd string rookie. Not even a 3rd round rookie. A 7th round 3rd string rookie. Really a 4th string rookie. So these guys, there's real opportunities to play in the league. You don't hope Jordan Love gets hurt, but you'd hope that you have good insurance if he does. Again, this goes back to the Peyton Manning, like the old story, if Peyton Manning goes down, we're you know what, and we don't practice you know what. Rhymes with bucked. That's the anecdote. And so that was my idea for a long time with Aaron Rodgers. I just didn't care about the backup quarterback position. I was just like, I don't care. Because if Aaron Rodgers goes down, you're screwed. It'd be nice to have a guy for a game or two, but most likely, those guys stink. There are 3 or 4 guys in the league, maybe 5 or 6, who are like Gardner Minshew level starters, who are borderline starters, but definitely not franchise quarterbacks. That are, perpetually backups. Oh, could someone convince themselves they're a bridge quarterback? Like, there's a group of guys like that. Do you want to bring one of those guys in? Doesn't seem like they do. So you go the draft and develop route, which means every year you're taking some chances on these kinds of players. It is smart when you have your quarterback because now you're not worried about it. You don't need it. You don't have to do it in the top 3 rounds. You got an extra pick on day 3. Take a shot. You like somebody, you like the talent, you like the traits, take a shot. And the last part of this is everyone runs a version of this offense now. Everyone. So you go, okay, well, they know the offense. You can go to LA or Cleveland or Minnesota or San Francisco or Miami or a million other places where they're running versions of this offense now. And go, they know the playbook. They know how this all works. And you're not really worried about any sort of learning curve or anything like that. And that has its own kind of value here too. Last thing about what Brian Gutekunst said. He talked a little trash. And our pal Matt Dery over at Locked On Lions had some thoughts about it. We're going to do that in a second here on Locked On Packers. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that dub. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. And thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Mike McCarthy once said that in Green Bay, they don't hang division title banners. And this last year, when the Detroit Lions won the division title for the first time in approximately 800 years, they hung a division title banner. And it was even more embarrassing because you have to, on the banner, show the other division titles that you've won. And there's like 3 of them. And all of them are from before color TV. And so it made it even worse that they had done that. And so Brian Gutekunst was asked about competing with the Lions and said, look, we don't hang division banners here. Good for them, basically. And I loved it. We need some rivalry back. Matt Dery, our pal, my Syracuse buddy, Locked on Lions, he didn't love it.
All right. Brian Gutekunst today was asked about chasing the Lions in the division, which, quite honestly, that's what Green Bay's doing. The last 2 years. Sorry, Packers, you're chasing the Lions. You just are. You finished behind the Lions 2 years ago. You finished behind the Lions this year. Gutey, as he's known in Green Bay, and this is from Matt Schneiderman of The Athletic, asked today about chasing the Lions at the Combine, quote, around here, we've never hung banners for division championships. So it's never been about that. It's a nice starting point, but I think we're about looking for bigger things, end quote. Shots fired. First of all, most teams do hang banners for division championships, including in this city. All right. The Tigers do it. The Pistons have done it. The Wings have done it. Dude, you're 17-17 the last 2 years. You're the Green Bay Packers. Oh, they're just hanging all these banners in Green Bay, right? Brett Favre just brought in, 2, 3, 4 titles? Aaron Rodgers, 3 or 4 championships? No, bro, 2. You've hung 2 banners since you've been alive, Bry. Gutey, 2. I know all about the Bart Starr and Lombardi era. Gutekunst's parents weren't even born then. Get out of here. Oh, we're all about hanging the good banners. Cool. You've hung 2, bro. Since 95, 97, whatever year they were. Favre won with Mike Holmgren. And Aaron Rodgers won his one, 2011? Then spent the last 3 years terrorizing you, and you let it happen? Oh, we're around here. We're never hanging banners for division championships. All right, well, maybe you should win one, dude, because you haven't the last 2 years. Hey, Brian, you can't hang a division championship banner because the Vikings hung one 2 years ago on your ass, and so did the Lions. You couldn't even get into the playoffs 2 years ago at home in week 18 against the Lions because the Lions punked you in your crib. Get out of here.
And that's why this is great. I love that they split the season series. That in each game you could go, yep, the other team clearly better. The Packers were clearly the better team on Thanksgiving. The Lions were clearly the better team on that other Thursday. Somehow they didn't play on a Sunday last year. They played twice on a Thursday. That's weird. And these are the 2 teams moving forward. More bulletin board material for Dan Campbell. I don't care. Win something without Ben Johnson. Let's see. For me to really take the Lions seriously, I need them to win something without Ben Johnson. And now that they're going to pay Jared Goff, it seems like I don't know why I would be afraid of them. I think the Packers go into this season with a more talented roster. I think they go into the season with a better coaching staff. I will pick the Packers as of this moment. Now, if they go out and the Lions go get L'Jarius Sneed, which seems like that could be a thing, it might change my mind. But I'm going to pick the Packers to win the NFC North next year. I'm not scared of the Lions. Trust me. All right, back tomorrow. Much more. The Combine begins in earnest. Not actual football, but actual testing, actual numbers. We're going to be getting here pretty soon. We're not going to dive so far into it, but we'll keep an eye on it. Some players that the Packers like and are looking at and could be interested in. We'll talk about all of that coming up more. on Locked On Packers. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you get podcasts. Subscribe to our TikTok, our Instagram, our YouTube, Locked On Packers, so you can stay Locked On Packers.